Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this new webinar organized by TMS entitled Teaching Communication Popularization. It's my pleasure to introduce you today the two speakers that are Dr. Chiara Biagini and Dr. Matteo Capone, who, although very young, have a lot of experience in the field of scientific communication and divulgation. First of all, a small brief introduction of them. Chiara received her master's degree in chemistry from La Sapienza University of Rome, where she also obtained her PhD in chemical sciences. After working for a period as an R&D scientist, she's now specializing in web communication in IED, Istituto Europeo di Design, while Matteo graduated from the same university in chemistry, but then moved to l'Aquila University to obtain his PhD in mathematics and models. Now he's working in the same university in the Department of Physical and Chemical Sciences, studying the mechanism of action of enzymes. But apart their academic and industrial careers, they are deeply and I should say passionately involved in scientific communication and divulgation. In fact, Matteo was in 2020 was finalist of FameLab Italia, the famous competition about scientific communication, while Chiara has been in the same year speaker for Radio Univac, where she held a webinar, a podcast called Chiaramente la scienza accessibile, speaking about science. Last but not least, they are together the minds behind the social media project called Il Chimico sulla Tavola, where they try every day to debunk fake news about chemistry and science in general. So without waiting any longer, Chiara, Matteo, the stage is yours.
Thank you for the very kind introduction. So since it's the 1st of April, I would like to start with some kind of a joke, but I could not think at something which was disruptive enough. So I will go straight to the presentation. So as Vincenzo said, I want just to remark what was our trigger in the journey of scientific popularization. So for who don't know what is FameLab, I will speak later more in detail, but it's a scientific communication contest. So it's some kind of a talent show. So that one was my trigger, my starting point for scientific popularization. And Chiara, she was a postdoc and she held the radio podcast about scientific popularization last year. So together, as Vincenzo said, we started our SciPop project on Instagram, named Il Chimico sulla Tavola, in the last October. And yes, we debunk information, but mainly we try to do science popularization, in particular to get people in touch with the scientific method, with science in general. We try to demonstrate that science is a serious stuff, but it's not boring at all. And with a particular focus, obviously, on chemistry. We try to show that it can be very interesting and also, and obviously, not dangerous at all, if treated with carefully. So let's start with the basics. Maybe it's obvious for some of us, but it was not obvious for me when I started this journey. So that scientific communication, teaching, and scientific popularization are very different. Also, if can seem similar. Scientific communication, they differ from many points of view, like audience and also for the purpose. Scientific communication is the most known kind of communication in science. Is the second main purpose of a scientist, and it has the purpose of sharing results between scientists. So is some kind of horizontal communication. So it's communication of science between experts. So you give us as clear and sound the basics of the subject that you are explaining of your results. So you don't go back. you just go for the results. Teaching and scientific popularization are very different in the audience because they aim to not specialized audience, so people which don't know very much or maybe nothing about that topic. For teaching, obviously, you are talking to not yet specialized, because the purpose is the formation of a specialist, the formation of an expert. So you go step by step in the subject, you explain all the concept, for example, of inorganic chemistry or whatever, and you try to create an expert. For scientific popularization, also, the purpose is totally different. So it's arousing interest in the people. And this is something that I want to stress. So the aim of communication is different. You give small bite of information in order to give some contact with a scientific method and some small information about a topic. But you should never send a message that that information as a science popularizer is all what you need to know about that topic. This is very well represented by the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is the graph of the confidence with the subject versus the knowledge in that specific subject. So at the start, you know very few of a topic, and you think that you know all of the stuff that you need to know. And this is obviously wrong. As a scientist, I know that I will never know enough. Also, even in my specialization field. And indeed, you go at a certain point in what is called the insecure canyon. So a point in which you recognize that you know probably very few about that topic. And scientific popularization cannot push you out of the insecure canyon. This is a task for teaching, so for courses, academic courses and whatever. But the point is that not everyone needs to be an expert, and it's obvious that you cannot be an expert in every field. So this is the aim of scientific popularization, to give some information, to have a clue also of other fields outside of your field of expertise, in order to get in touch and develop a critical thinking. So this is the main aim of popularization. If you think about a scientist, as I said, the second main purpose is the diffusion of his results. The main, obviously, is the production of the results. So the best is a publication of prestigious scientific journals, invitation to conferences in order to share your result, to give them a prestige. But this is, we could say, the standard way of science. The standard science communication. But we know that nowadays, at least, we can do more. The huge growth of social network, also in a professional way, allowed scientists to share their result in a different way using social network, as for example ResearchGate or Twitter, which are widely used to create network between research groups, to create collaboration, to discover new content, and also share contents in a way that was impossible before, which was impossible only with publication on scientific journals and conferences. So this was a survey from Nature in 2014, and probably now is even more diffused, the usage for professional purpose. But scientists could use social media also for other tasks. This is the Instagram profile of Science M. She's a science influencer. She's very famous. She's a molecular biologist, and she tried to show to people, so on social media, that science is not only lab and measurements. So someone said of her that she tried to show the fun and trendy side of science, so that you have many other activities that you can do also outside of the lab. And she's particularly active in the engagement of she tried to engage young people, in particular girls, to start a science career, and she tried to show them that they can be as good as men in science, because the gender gap is also huge in science. We know it, we need to be aware of it in order to fix this huge problem. So social media and scientists can go together also in the sensibilization on specific critic points of science. But this activity in social media, so we could say the figure of the social scientist, attract the critiques of many other scientists, which are, we could say, standard scientists, because the social media activities can drain a lot of time from your lab work. They are very time consuming. And so they could be seen as a malus, but also as a plus in your CV, because they allow you to grow very specific skills that you will be probably not able to get outside of this kind of field. So, but as I said, it's very time consuming. So if you want to be a social scientist, probably at a certain point you should choose one of the two careers, so you could have a crossroad at a certain point. So, but this is something that depends on how much time you want to spend in that kind of activities. Obviously, you can be just slightly active, and you can go easily also only with lab work. But if you are interested in this kind of career, there are already a lot of academic courses and master courses in several universities in Italy in the formation of scientific journalist, scientific communicator, and also in teacher of scientific subject, which are very different tasks and require strong communication skills, but also slightly different depending on the audience. So there are many courses in order to become an expert. If you want to test yourself in this kind of field, there is already a wide panorama for science popularization and science communication in Italy. Those three projects or activities are just three of the huge amount which are present. And the first one is CICAP, which is an historical institution in Italy. Is the Italian Committee for the Control of Statement in Pseudoscience. So it's very active in science popularization and in particular in debunking of news connected to pseudoscience, like homeopathy or similar stuff. So this is something which works. You can subscribe to it. You can try to get in touch with this environment. FameLab, as I said, was my trigger, the start of my journey in scientific popularization. And it's a contest. It's a talent show of communication of science. You have 3 minutes to explain a specific concept of science or a field or whatever, but you need to be very clear, very synthetic, because you have only 3 minutes. And you need very strong communication skills. So it's something that you need to you can develop in the preparation of this kind of contest. And also is very famous is the European Night of Researchers. Is as it say, the name is a European project in which every university and also all the institution try to get in touch with the young people, but also the adults, in order to involve them in the scientific method, and also to attract the young people in order to start an academic career or a scientific related career. So it's something which is very widely diffused, and you can easily be involved in this kind of activities. 2 last takeaway messages which I want to give to you are: who could learn from a scientific popularizer, or in other words, which are the other figures, professional figures, which would require strong communication skills. From my experience, all the academic courses that I remember that I have very clear in my mind are the one in which the professor had strong communication skills. So he was able to get in touch with us, to entertain us in some way, and this kind of teaching is very efficient in order to make easier to deliver the message of the course, and also makes easier for the students to learn. So it's something that I want to say to you, because probably in the audience there are a lot of people that will become teacher or professor in the future. So I think that it's something that should be took more into account in lessons and whatever. The second point is who watches the Watchmen, or how do we check the reliability of a scientific popularizer, since in the last year we had a huge an explosion of the number of science popularizer. In the past we had only few, and it was easy to check the reliability. We have few, we have Piero Angela, Alberto Angela, we don't have so many popularizer in the past, but now we have a huge amount. So how can we how we can resolve this problem? In standard science, we have the peer review process, in which a group of scientists check the result of other scientists. So we can in some way, most of the time, this process works, and so we can check always the reliability of the results, so they are true and strong before showing them to the scientific community. In science popularization is starting to grow a similar process, a similar approach. Indeed, a network between scientific popularizer is growing, and in some it's starting to appear some kind of internal check, a self-check between popularizer, which give to all of them more reliability. So it's something which is growing and is changing every day. But something that you need to keep in mind is that in this huge panorama of popularizer, you need always to check their reliability, and this is something that need to be taken into account. So this is all for me. So I will leave the place to Chiara. She will give to you a more in detail analysis of a SciPop project. Thank you.
Thanks, Matteo. Thanks to you for being here. And for the second part of this presentation, we wanted, as Matteo said, to give you an insight of the process of creating a SciPop project, of designing a SciPop project. We thought about giving this info to you, firstly, in case some of you were wondering about starting a communication project, a SciPop project yourself. But those tips are quite general tips. They are just basics of communication and web communication. So they might turn useful to you in case, for example, you are a teacher, or you are attending a conference, you're presenting your work at a conference, or else you might be writing a book, writing articles for magazines. So those are just basics, and we hope those tips can be useful to you, because we actually used them to create our SciPop project, and they worked well. So all our tips can be actually summarized into one only sentence. So before even starting, you have to set up a so-called editorial line for your project. What does it mean? The editorial line is a document, probably often a physical document, in which all the features that make your project distinguishable and unique are assessed in advance. This is for the sake of clarity of the project, efficiency of communication, and self-consistency of the message. Because just think about, in our case, for example, it's just Matteo and I that work on our project. But in larger project, there might be many authors who work on it. So even if the individuals have a single voice, their own style, the project has to speak for himself, has to stand by himself, and has to possess its own voice, its own style, so that it is uniform and consistent throughout its whole development. Setting up the editorial line means deciding in advance what the target of your message is, what language are you using, and what tone of voice, which are not the same thing. It includes what platforms do you want to share your messages on, and how do you want the audience to see you, so what's your visual identity, and of course, what are the contents that you want to share. We will see each one of these features one by one in a bit of detail, so that you can understand the importance of assessing those features in advance. So the first thing you have to think about, you have to ask yourself is, whom am I speaking to? So who is the target of a message? What niche, what cultural niche am I occupying? And once you answer those questions, once you ask yourself this question, you have to ask yourself in turn many other questions, such as, okay, so given my target, what topics might they be interested in? And what slang do they use? So what vocabulary should I use to communicate with them efficiently? And what platform are they in? For example, what social media platform are they in, so that I have to share my message in the same one? Choosing the right target is not that easy, because actually you can't think of a message that is for everyone, that is understood and appreciated by everyone. So you have just to restrict your audience and to be and to focus on them. Of course, you can also attract a collateral, we can say, target, but your main target will be only one. If you're talking to high school students, university students, professional, just assess it in advance. A good exercise, it could be to identify the target of other communication projects which are not already in the web, and which you know and you like. I chose for this example these infographics from Compound Interest, which is a communication project, a science popularization project focused on chemistry, focused on molecules. It is very famous among chemistry students. The language which Andy Brunning, the author of this project, uses is very simple, very plain, understandable. But there is a curious feature. I mean, he always shows the name and the structure of molecules, which are details in which only some kind of people can be interested in. Of course, not my, let's say, not my best friend who has not a background in chemistry. Probably the first target of this kind of communication project is chemistry students, pharmacy students, or whoever has got a background in chemistry and can appreciate those amount of detail. About the language, of course, once I decide who my target is, the second question is, okay, then what language should I use? Am I talking to an audience of experts, so people who actually have a background in this topic? In this case, I might decide to use a more specific language, a technical jargon, because my audience can understand it. Otherwise, if my audience is just composed of people who are simply interested in the matter and they have no background on it, in this case, I should use a very simple language, because I should not take anything for granted, any basic notion for granted. These two kinds of languages are okay, of course, both the two. But the point is, all along your project, you have to be self-consistent. I mean, if you choose a specialized audience, sending them the messages which are too simplistic can be really boring for them. I tried in this example to convey the same idea in two different ways, talking about photons. but to two different kind of audiences. In the first sentence, I try to explain what a photon is to people who have some background in the field. And I said, photon is the quantum of electromagnetic energy. As you can see, there are two words which are not actually basics. It's quantum and electromagnetic. And these two words have to be deleted in the second version of this sentence, which is thought for people who have no background in the field. And so I said, luminous energy is delivered in small packages called photons. As you can see, this language is very plain, very non-specific, so can be understood by almost everyone. Again, both the twos are okay. The only thing is don't mix up messages with audiences and just be self-consistent with yourself. The tone of voice is not the same thing as the language, because you can use the same language but with a different tone of voice, which really makes all the difference. The tone of voice is more about who do you want to be, what kind of character do you want to impersonate. And so, for example, you should ask yourself, do I want to be serious or comical? Do I want to be formal? Do I want to have a vertical kind of communication, so just say things to people, or to involve them with questions, poll, and so on. A nice example of how the tone of voice can change things is, in my opinion, in this comparison between two of the superstars, we can say, of Italian scientific popularization panorama in chemistry and science in general. Those two are Dario Bressanini, the one on the left, who is a chemistry professor, and his communication style is totally plain, calm, quite a bit ironic, but mainly plain, and it just conveys a feeling of being reliable, being serious. The other guy is Barbascura X. He is now, I think, a postdoc in chemistry. And he's a science popularizer on YouTube, which is widely loved for his attitude. He's totally above the lines. The way he moves, the way he talks, the words he chooses, he looks totally crazy. And the feeling that he communicates to people is totally different. Even if the message is not that different, because they both communicate science and trust in science, and they both debunk stuff. Probably their target audience is not completely superimposable because of their different tone of voice. Well, then we might ask ourselves, what are the social media platforms that we want to share our message on? I borrowed this famous meme who tells us that our profile picture must be totally different according to the social media we're using. And I borrowed the face of Mark Hamill, the super famous actor from the Star Wars series. As you can see in this meme, he looks totally professional and serious on LinkedIn, and he wants to look totally different on Tinder, like sexy and cheeky. And in the same way, even if, of course, us science communicators won't be on Tinder to communicate science, the message is the same. I mean, different platforms require different contents and have different rules, of course. So in the moment that I decide what my audience is, I shall craft my contents appropriately for that platform that my audience uses. So for example, if I want to go on YouTube with videos, I will work on videos of a certain length, which is different from the videos I would work on if I chose TikTok, for example, as my social media platform, because TikTok requires short videos. There are social media platforms which require visual content, ones that require written content and mixed ones. And the contents that you create can be repurposed and transferred from one platform to another, but they have to be actually rethought and resized, because all these platforms have different rules in terms of the content that you have to share, and also the audiences are very different. So for example, a video for YouTube might not be appreciated by the audience of TikTok, for example. As for visual identity, this is probably one of the way in which you can be more recognizable in social media and the web in general, because this has to do with your appearance, actually, the appearance of your project. So it has to make people stop when they see some content that you published. And for example, to be immediately recognizable, you can use always the same font, which is associated to your project. You can use a logo and different graphics with different color palettes. If you're doing videos, you can use the framing to be characteristic with maybe a proper background. And of course, your face is the most powerful instrument that you have to be recognizable and to be identified with the project. Of course, this is not for everyone, because people can be camera shy and they might not want to appear on social media in a professional way. But of course, when the audience see a face of a human being, they realize there's a person behind the project, and they start building a relationship with the owner of the project, with the project itself. So this can be an advantage. Well, the visual identity is fundamental if you are using a social media platform, for example, which is based on visuals. While if your project was born on a different platform, let's say YouTube, which is based on videos, and you become famous with them, you might not want to lose time, to spend time on building a strong visual identity. Those two examples represent well this difference. The Instagram feed on the left is Adrian Fartades. Adrian is another science popularization superstar on YouTube. He became very famous with his YouTube channel about astrophysics. And he got so famous on YouTube that when he turned to Instagram, he was already famous, and he didn't have to spend time on building a visual identity. And so his feed could look like not very ordered, not very tidy, quite sloppy actually. Different thing is that the case when your project is actually born on a visual-based social media platform, like the one on the right. As you can see here, every post in the feed is immediately recognizable because they all got the same template. So when you scroll your feed on Instagram, you stop and say, oh, there's the new post from Missione Scienza, and you recognize it. And well, last but not least, the contents that you might want to craft, that you want to include in your communication projects are maybe the cookies in your tin box, the most important thing. And of course, I have no advices to give you on that, because they are very personal and they depend on the project that you might work on. And the only things I'm focusing on are the fact that point one, once you create contents and personal contents, you have to expect critique, because you can't be appreciated by everyone. So expect critiques because they are normal. And most importantly, since you are talking about science, this is a very, very serious topic. And as a science popularizer, a science communicator, you have a strong responsibility for your role. So pay attention to your sources. Just use the most reliable sources that you can find, and make them available to the audience in case they want to deepen their knowledge and they want to read a bit more about them. One other interesting question is how many contents do I have to publish and when? So what's the frequency of posting, an optimal frequency of posting? There is no golden rule actually, because you have to find the sweet spot between the quality of your contents and the regularity of posting, the amount of the frequency of posting. But one thing I can tell you is that whatever the number of contents that you want to publish is, regular posting is always rewarded from a human and a non-human point of view. First, because if you decide that you publish with regularity, let's say twice a week, people will start expecting that, and this will build loyalty, will build a relationship. They will start expecting your post. And the second factor is the algorithms of social media platforms, because they always reward regular posting. And so if you post regularly, you have a better chance to appear on people's feed with a higher frequency. So the best ally of regular posting is the editorial calendar. So you have to assess, to decide in advance, to plan in advance what are the contents that you want to share, when and what, and of course all the details, because otherwise you risk to have, let's say, one day of blank page crisis, and you don't know what to write, you don't know what to share, and you just get stuck. So this is pretty much all for by us, and of course we are so grateful to all the organizing committee who allowed us to be here. We thank you for your attention. Of course, if you want to know more about our project, about our communication style, you can have a look at our Instagram page, Il Chimico sulla Tavola, where we will be extremely happy to see you. And we are open to questions, I think. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chiara and Matteo, for this really interesting webinar and presentation about something that's not so common to hear about during science talks. Before starting the discussion, I had just a curiosity to ask you, as popularizer on Instagram, do you think, as Matteo said, in last years we saw an increase in the number of popularizers on social media? Do you think that nowadays there is still space for other new popularizers? And if yes, what is the main aspect, the most important aspect that a popularizer should take into consideration to emerge, to stand up from the whole panel of popularizers that we have on social medias?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, this is something that you need to take into account. Obviously, as Chiara said, you need to choose a niche, because there are a lot of people which are trying to become a scientific popularizer. So yes, there is obviously still a space, because there are many of them, but obviously not all of them will stand up outside of the others. So you need to choose what is your message. This is the point. You don't need to copy, to just superpose with the other. You say, okay, I like Dario Bressanini, I want to be like him. This is probably the wrong approach. Yes. So you need to say, okay, I like this. You need to base your communication on what you like, what is your passion. Obviously, different fields have different space. There are some fields which are more crowded, which maybe they could look more interesting, more appealing to people, and others which are less attractive, so they attract also less science popularizer. So this depends a lot on your approach, on what is your passion. If you cannot think about something which is outside of the standard, you need to think again if you want to start. Yeah. So you should not superpose with what is already present. Or if you want to superpose, you need to do it better.
Yes. Choose your way and stick to it. Yes, I think that's the best thing you could say. So I'm starting.
If I can add.
Yes, go on. Yes, please.
To the thoughts, we have actually noticed that a wide list of topics are covered by science popularizer, but those are mainly concentrated in the field of physics and astrophysics. There are loads of them. Maybe because astrophysics is something which is very, I don't know, maybe.
I think that it's the kind of subject which is very, very complicated, but it's very attracting, and is usually in some way it's not easy, but it can be in some way easily made.
It can
simple, made popularized.
It can light a fire in people's hearts. So, while chemistry is not that popular, actually. There are some giants of science popularization like Dario Bressanini, but there are not so many science popularizers. And some of them who already exist are actually referring to a target of people who are already enthusiasts in chemistry. So there's no point in popularizing chemistry among an audience where chemistry is already popular, in our opinion. So there is quite much space if you look actually closer, because not every topic is equally covered.
Okay. And do you last question, and then I will start reading the questions in the chat. Do you believe that the fact that there are few chemical popularizers, it could be linked to the fact that chemistry is still taught and perceived as something negative in our society, in our culture, or it could be something? It's because chemistry is something that few people study and know. What are your thoughts about this? The fact that there are so few chemical popularizers in chemistry.
You can imagine that this is a topic that we.
Yes. We could make a series of webinars. Yes.
Yes. My point of view. Then Matteo can give his own. I think chemistry is attractive because it covers the reason languages in our everyday lives. So the common phenomena that we experience every day. And for this reason, people might not find it, exciting, because not many people find exciting to discover how to cook an egg.
Yeah.
So I think that chemistry is also presented the wrong way in these terms, because there are endless wonders in your everyday life. And chemistry can help you explain that. And while maybe topics like physics and astrophysics are more attractive because they are out of the ordinary. Of course, in some people, I think there still is a sense of chemistry as dirty, as polluting, as poisonous, and this is, of course, something we have to take into account to build a better image of chemistry. But I think the problems are mainly those two.
Okay.
Yeah, just one point that I want to add is that, as Chiara said before, when you put your face, you can get more engagement, but it's easier also to gain critiques. So when you put your face and you speak about controversy like chemical problems connected to chemistry, like artificial flavor and whatever, you will be quite open to critiques. You will enter easily in discussion, and this is something that probably can prevent people to go in this field, because I know that chemistry is what it is, so it has good side and bad sides, obviously, as whatever, but I know this, and if some others don't understand, this is your problem. I don't want to get bored in this kind of discussion. So I think that this is a problem.
Yes, a great problem, I should add. The first question is in reality two questions are from Professor Carlone. The first one is how and when did you realize you could take few steps forward from your first experiences, FameLab and Radio Univac? And then the other question, but I think that you indirectly already answered to it throughout your presentation. I know people can make a living out of it abroad and in Italy. In Italy, I know, for example, Dario Bressanini, Beatrice Mautino, Matt Bunker, Barbascura X, and others. Who are your favorites?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, you start.
Okay, I start. So about how we decided to step forward in this journey, we thought about it a lot. Obviously, we waited to the right moment, the moment in which we had time to spend in this project, and one of the point was also the pandemic situation, because we had more free time. And this is true for us, but this was true for many other scientific popularizer, because there was also another growth in popularizer in the pandemic period, in particular in the news connected with the virus information, the Q and whatever. So mainly we decided that if we want to start this journey, we need to do it in a good way. So we need some time, and we waited for the right moment. This was the main point.
Yes.
Okay, Matteo is very technical in his answers, so maybe you were expecting a more emotional.
Probably yes.
Okay. So maybe I can add a few points. Okay, I've a background in theater, for example, so I've always loved to be on the stage and to communicate with non-conventional means. But Matteo is very shy, and so joining FameLab was, I think, a strange experience for him, because he was on the stage for the first time, and he was totally astonished when he realized he got on the finals. And so I think he gained a bit of confidence there. And then once he realized after his FameLab experience that he enjoyed that very much, then I kicked in and I said, "So, Matteo, it's the moment. We have time to spend, since we are stuck at home, and now that's the right moment." Yeah. And then I engaged him enough I pushed him to start this, and it was a good thing, because we both grown a lot in a few months of experience.
Okay, and about your favorites popularizers in the Italian social media background.
As we mentioned, I don't follow so many chemists, because after the work and my second work usually had enough of chemistry. Usually go to different channel, like also philosophy, or for example astrophysics. Also Adrian was one of my favorites, with Link for Universe, but also Chi ha paura del buio is another very good page, or L'Avvocato dell'Atomo, which is very focused on the awareness about nuclear energy, which is a huge problem of nowadays. So there are many, but not strictly connected to chemistry, mainly to other scientific fields, like as I say, Drick Dufer, which is on philosophy, or
even Massimo Polidoro from CICAP.
From CICAP.
He has a very nice podcast on strange event, revisited in with a scientific view, and
this is very nice.
Yes.
Or, for example, also Entropy for Life, which is more connected to biology, for example. Which is
there is space for everybody in social popularized fields. Yes. Then Valeria, a question from Valeria Nori. She congratulates you on your good job, and she asks, what do you think is the best social media for science popularization? And another curiosity is, how much work do you have to put into every single post?
Well, as for the social, it depends on your target. A social media platform which is widely used is YouTube, but actually the youngest are not that fond of YouTube, because they have I don't know, maybe a lower less time to spare, less concentration to dedicate to a long video, let's say a 20 minutes long video. So, for example, if you want to engage with the young, YouTube might not be the best choice. And so Instagram, for example, is better at this because it allows you to share shorter videos and visual content as well. I've seen some, very recently, I've seen some science popularizer on TikTok. But for example, this is a personal opinion. TikTok is fun, maybe, but the contents that you can share are too short. Those are bits, so they cannot do much more than just raising a little bit of interest, so that you can look for information on that topic later. And so you can't give actually a self-standing bit of information with TikTok. We have chosen Instagram for this reason. So it allows you to play a bit with content. So you can craft visual content if it resonates with you. You can share videos, but of a limited length. So you can reach a wider I think target of people.
Yeah. But yeah, this depends mainly on the message that you want to send. From my point of view, as example, I prefer YouTube, because you can get more in touch with the popularizer, because you need to show your face basically. And most of them are videos in this way. So that was my favorite one, because as Missione Scienza is a very nice page on Instagram, but you don't know who is behind the page. It's very common on Instagram to have just visual content. So it's very different in the way. Also, it's even less demanding from the time point of view. And this goes to the second point.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time.
Yes.
Yes, I imagine, yes.
But this depends a lot on the topic. Some of them which are maybe more close to breaking news, let's say, so to topic which are discussed in the moment, you need to be more careful with those, with the sources and whatever. While if you speak, I don't know, of the denaturation of protein, you don't need to be so careful on the sources. You more or less, you know from your course, academic courses, how it works. But in those cases, you need to be more careful, very careful. And but the time that we spent in every post also decreased with our proficiency.
Yes.
In the
sometimes we did have to study from scratch. We just got some papers and we just studied them, and it took a bit of time, but that was necessary if we wanted to focus on that topic, which was we found it was interesting, so we dedicated a lot of time to it. But it's also good because you know a lot of things.
You discover a lot of interesting stuff. So this is also very useful for us, and very enjoyable for us.
Yes, I just noticed that Professor Teti raised her hand, so I don't know if she probably has something to ask. So please, Professor.
But there are other questions before mine, so please.
Okay. Okay then. The question is from Michela Ciocca. She asks, to communicate scientific topics, you need to have an important study and knowledge. In your experience, how did you choose the topics to show, and how much study and how many people are needed to have a good background? In your opinion, I believe to have a good background. In case you open a discussion, for example, in the comments of a post, how do you manage it? I believe that the last question is very important stuff. Yes.
Okay, about how do we choose the contents? we notice that people are passionate about things that are on the news. So and they are really passionate about hot topics such as vaccines and all the dirty stuff. This is actually not so. Those are topics not that easy to face, because they are still very open to discussion, and we tend not to choose topics in which we can't provide the sources with a good certainty, with a good confidence. So open topics are, of course, hot topics, and they are mostly sought, but we are not so eager to go deeper into them. We usually use the golden rule of looking for topics which are interesting in the sense that they add something to people's experience, so they can be useful in the future. So maybe you have to dye your hair, and you can make a post about hair dyes in order to make people choose the right dye for them, and so that they can understand why their previous dye was a disaster, for example. So topics that can add some value to people's experience, and they can help them. Mm-hmm. For example, we are also we love to cook, and so we try to go deeper into the cooking processes to explain to people why, for example, their meringue was a disaster last time they tried to bake one, and so on. Just value is the key point.
Also other points in which, other argument in which we are very passionate. So something that we like a lot, and this is it can be seen from the audience. If you are passionate about something, you will be explained probably better than some other one which is not passionate as you. So also we select our favorite topics. So mainly those two, the main way in which we choose the topics to show to the people.
Yes.
And then about the discussion, how we manage the discussion. Up to now, we had only small discussion about all the posts that we have done. So we don't need to manage too much the discussion, but obviously at a certain point you need to choose which discussion you need to leave away and which one you need to follow. Obviously, the ones that I will leave behind are the toxic ones, so the critiques that don't bring any additional information. And I always try to grow the discussion about something that can increase the information from that post. So if someone asks additional information about something, it's always good to add those information in the post, in the comments. In that way, you increase the value of the content. You need to choose all the discussion in a way in which you make the content better and not the opposite.
Okay, perfect. So as you can see, as you can read, Marco Ponzetti congratulates you about your hard work and the courage you have. So before reading the question from the third question from Professor Carlone, please, Professor Teti, it's your turn.
Yes, thank you. We are at the end, actually. We don't have much time. Just a couple of comments, because I don't want that the audience get the wrong message. I mean, you have been very good, and I really enjoyed it, and I liked your enthusiasm for this. But the audience should know that when you use the social media, you are promoting yourself, not science. And for instance, Vincenzo Marsicano promoted himself today because he asked questions, 3 or 4, before the audience. So this is not something that the chair should do. The chair should give the audience the opportunity to ask questions and, ask your question when there is time. And the major difference between social media and the regular communication means is that there are no filters in the social media, whereas these filters, the peer review, what you call peer review, is something very important in the other communication means, including those communications that are lay communications, like the ones that the journalists do. So this is a big difference. And another point I would like to make is about the big problem that there is between females and males in science. You should consider that to be a scientist, a great scientist, you have to be intelligent, you have to be passionate, motivated, and skilled. And I don't think that these things are linked to the X or the Y chromosome. So the problem is completely different from what you are saying. Otherwise, Marie Curie was not in the famous picture alone with all those males in a time in which the difference between males and females was much stronger. This is not a criticism. This is just to make people think more about what you said, because I think that you did really a great job, but it's important to stimulate the audience to also to think in a different way. So just a matter of giving other points for thinking and discussing, I think. So unfortunately we are late, Vincenzo.
Yes, I noticed.
Can I?
Yes.
Just add just one thing. Thanks, Professor, for your for adding those points. Well, I'd like to stress that the point is not that actually Marie Curie was on that picture. The point was that she was the only woman, and of course, this is at the time she was revolutionary. Of course, her presence was revolutionary, but things have not changed that much. Of course, both men and women can be good as scientists, and this is of course out of question. The point is that women are underrepresented, and in some way we could say that we can emerge also in this lateral way. This is one possible outcome. So of course we agree with what you said. So this is not a matter of who you are, whether you're a male or a female. It's just the point that women are fewer, less represented.
Okay, thank you.
In the lab, there are many more females than males at this stage.
Sorry?
Okay, in any case, there are many more females than males in the laboratories. In any case, I think that maybe we can have a chat together so we can discuss a little bit more different aspects, just to let people think. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm the chair of the TMS. So this is why I tend to help people think in a different way.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so as Professor Tetti was saying, we are running out of time. So thank you again, Matteo and Chiara, for this amazing presentation. Thank you to the audience. We are running out of time. So if you have other questions, you can chat directly with the two speakers through their social media pages, as we said during the presentation. And see you on next Thursday for another TMS by Jorge Guerra Pires. And so thank you so much for attending this webinar.
Thanks to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention and enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.